This is not.
I didn't see it.
Where's the track?
Let's come in.
This track, yeah. I'm taking that one. Yeah, I got you. So this is right behind that.
Good.
Thing.
I think that's all.
All right, I'm here to call the meeting to order. Robin, can you please call roll, please?
Mr. Pahowitz?
Here.
Ms. Trabellis?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Pierce?
Here.
Mr. Beer?
Here. All right, on to new business. We're here to discuss two cases tonight. The first is going to be the rezoning application ZON-22-07, which is Plan for Land, LLC, Joe Clace. This is at 2460 East Orange Road in Lewis Center, Ohio. Robin, do you want to go through the staff report, please?
Sure. So the applicant is requesting to rezone 5 acres from farm residential to allow for 10 single-family homes in the single-family plan residential district. The site is located on the south side of East Orange Road. The applicant is requesting to rezone farm residential lot to single-family plan residential district and split the current parcel into 10 single-family residential lots. The proposed development will comply with all single-family plan residential district standards, with the exception of 2 divergences that are requested pertaining to lot depth standards and the setback for the lot abutting East Orange Road. The site is surrounded by planned residential districts on 3 sides, as well as farm residential district on one side to the west, and also the school property to the east, which is also zoned FR1. The next page, you can see the aerial photograph and also the proposed site layout underneath. In terms of density and unit count, the development is compliant with the maximum permitted density, proposing 10 lots on 5 acres, which is 2 units per acre, which is the maximum permitted density in the single-family plan residential district. The open space requirement will be met for that district, as well as parking standards and minimum floor area for the homes. In terms of development standards, one divergence is requested for a decrease in the lot depth. That divergence is specifically for a reduction of 5 feet, reducing the minimum lot depth from 135 feet to a proposed lot depth of 130 feet. There's also a separate divergence requested for a setback from East Orange Road. The request is for a divergence of 25 feet, reducing the minimum front yard setback along East Orange Road from 130 feet to 105 feet. Upon our further review in our staff review here, we did note that the building setback from Orange Road should be 70 feet and not 130 feet, according to Section 21.09 of the Orange Township Zoning Resolution, potentially rendering this divergence request unnecessary. I would also note that it's not listed on this staff report, but there could be another divergence triggered for the monument sign that is proposed. The language in the application states that it would be located no less than 10 feet from the right-of-way. It would need to be located at least 15 feet from the right-of-way in order to not trigger an additional divergence. Delaware County Regional Planning Commission did recommend conditional approval of this rezoning request, subject to approval of the divergences if needed, continuing to work with the county engineer's office on an approved turnaround, including a sidewalk as part of the street cross-section, and reconstructing the multi-use path away from the road. The Orange Township Operations Department did have some comments in review of this application, which I will briefly go over. One requesting plus or minus 0.171 acres containing the Orange Road right-of-way be split off and deeded to Orange Township rather than it remaining with this property and existing as right-of-way. 2, requesting a multi-use path on the east side of the proposed road, and that would provide potential to connect with the school path to the south of the athletic track there. 3, interested in more information about the radius of the turnaround at the end of the proposed road, as well as information as to why a stub design was chosen instead of a traditional cul-de-sac. 4, request for either an easement in Reserve B for a future multi-use path under the existing power lines, or language that would permit such a path in the future, just trying to make sure that is something that is feasible in the future. And would also like information as to any proposed street signage, such as no outlet, no trucks, etc. That was not mentioned in the application. The Orange Township Fire Department also had 2 comments. One recommending that the applicant consult with the fire department regarding the turnaround at the end of the proposed road, as well as fire hydrant spacing and line size, and also requesting information as to how the homes will be addressed. I have nothing further.
All right, thank you, Robin. At this time, we'll ask if the applicant wishes to come up and kind of give an overview of the project and then maybe address some of the staff comments before we start board comments.
Sure. I'm Joe Clace with Plan for Land. I'm here with my client, Aaron Azar, as well. He's here to answer any questions, but I can maybe give an overview and maybe we can respond to those items that were highlighted in the staff report as well.
Yep. Can you also give your address, please?
Yes. 1 South Harrison Street in Ashley, Ohio.
Thank you.
Thank you. So appreciate the staff report. I feel like we've been working on the project with Delaware County to kind of gauge their support and been working with staff to try to figure out what type of layout would work best. The site lends itself pretty much to a cul-de-sac because of the terrain and the way that the site leads. Putting this drive down the east or the east side of the development would obviously be the most fitting. The one divergence we requested, the nature of it, is we needed to move the drive west away from a guardrail, and as a result created this devil strip down the east side of the right-of-way where the proposed trail was kind of highlighted. So the thought process was with that we could potentially seek out a divergence for distance off of the west line. Other than that, the lots appear compliant, and we'd work with you on the divergence for the monument as well. I understand the request for the dedication of land to the township out front. That would be, I also believe, a requirement of the subdivision process that be dedicated right away. So we'll have to plat this project. So that's something that I believe will come up through their office as well. There was some concern about the T turnaround. We originally had a cul-de-sac laid out in the development. After reviewing the plans and identifying that the cul-de-sac was beyond all of the house lots, it was suggested by our engineer that we convert to a T turnaround, which was acceptable by the Delaware County engineers subdivision standards. That being said, it did not take away substantial open space to revert that to a cul-de-sac. So it's something that with the way that we've worded this, we've ensured that we meet your open space standards, but there could be flexibility that we'd provide a cul-de-sac if the engineer's office determined or the fire department determined that that's more appropriate. But we feel like that's something that's probably going to come through the engineering review process unless there's a standard that the township wants to set for it. But we felt like the turnaround would lend itself better to this project primarily because the cul-de-sac wouldn't be heavily used. Somebody would assumingly come in and drive past all the homes before they got to this turnaround. So assumingly it's not going to be overly used. We thought the T turnaround would actually allow for mowers and maintenance to access it more readily. So and then the other comment that came up with regional planning was the potential for if the school site were to get redeveloped in some way, that they might want to provide a connection. The T turnaround actually provides a better avenue in my mind for that. That they can come in and actually create an intersection there. Even though it'd be a 90-degree turn, they could connect to the roadway if they wanted to with either a path or with the potential for a roadway. So those comments kind of came out early in the process. The nature of the front divergence, I think off the center line, I was measuring 130. If we don't have to be necessarily meeting that, I think the idea of not needing a divergence sounds great, but we went ahead and included it in there because we felt like we were going to be encroaching maybe 10 foot into the required setback in reading the code. So whether the board feels we need that or not, we kind of leave that discussion to you, but we did include a request for the front yard divergence to try to keep the front house site a little bit closer and consistent with the house that's directly to the west. So it's the same distance that home is from the public road right away. So that's kind of a presentation. I don't have too many additional comments to make as far as dedication in the trail easement. It seems like through the platting process we could work to understand what that request is and identify how that would be met. We are being required by the county to provide a sidewalk, which we had identified on the west side of the street. If there's a multi-use trail proposed, obviously that might be overkill for the two of them. So we had identified it in front of the homes, thinking it would be more heavily used, putting a trail down the east side when there's not really a connection there today to make. Felt like that would not be heavily used. People would have to cross over the drive to get to and from it. So may not be as supportive of that request today, but providing for that in the text, I think would make sense down the road if there's ever anything it could connect with. But there's nothing there today that it would ultimately be leading into. The idea would be to make the street as pedestrian friendly as possible, with the idea that if they're not walking on the sidewalk, that they would also have the opportunity to walk the street as well to get to the open space. I think that's all I had. If you guys have any questions after public comment too, we can run through those, but if you have any now, I'd be happy to address them.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we're going to open up for the board's comment, and then we will get to public comment after that. All right, so anybody want to start or have any comments they wanted to kick this off with?
Yeah, I can start.
All right.
I think my biggest question, seeing this laid out with the houses facing the track, is there any plan for any type of landscaping or something to be a barrier between those houses and the track?
There's nothing identified in the plans. There's an existing tree line there the goal is to have those be retained. But for the most part, that natural buffer that's there today would be retained as a part of this development.
Okay, thank you.
So down here by the T, I noticed you're in the easement, the 345 kV easement. Are you changing that grade at all?
We are. There's actually a basin proposed. If you see the preliminary grading plan, there'll be a dry basin, I believe it is, proposed in the power line easement area.
Did you get? And I saw that. Did you get that approved by the utility?
Yeah, it's not been officially approved, but it's my understanding that they will support the dry basin because it's not inhibiting their ability to access their lines. And then I believe in my past experience with the power company, they actually prefer the access be granted, so the drive getting in there will actually give them access to their lines as well.
Yeah, but my concern was the clearances and stuff, if that was approved.
Yeah, it's we're reducing the elevation versus increasing, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'll say we have to run a final grading plan by them, so we've not asked for any formal approvals yet, just because.
Yeah, my concern is you have 100 foot for a 340 kV, which is normally 130 foot corridor. So I didn't have a chance to pull that easement. But was it a defined easement or was it a 50 foot shown? It's
the text that's been identified was 50 foot from the towers, so it's
okay. So 50 foot. So you're going to actually that tower. You're going to go out a little bit more than 25, or 50 foot on each side. You're going to be about 55.
Correct. Yeah. So we're currently what it's shown on here is my understanding that's what's been identified by the engineer. Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if you guys just put a 100 foot corridor through there. Okay.
No, I think it was actually 150 was what was identified on the plans. It was 50 foot for the tower itself and the wires, because I believe it was the wires was what the measurement was from. So we went beyond that.
Okay,
so
beyond it. Okay.
The transmission that's shown should be 150 foot as identified.
And then I was looking at the, and it's hard to tell by this, but it looks like the house. The 2404, it appears, and again, this is just my concern was the driveway. It looks like, is that impacting the residents next door on his drive?
Oh, no, there's an existing fence line there. I'm assuming that we've not had an official survey, but I'm assuming that to be the boundary.
Okay, that was going to be the question.
Yeah,
let's get that surveyed out.
Yeah, their driveway falls short of it. So, no, we identified based on the last legal that was written for the purpose of the plans, but we've not had an official survey completed yet.
Okay, so you guys didn't do underground location yet?
We have not yet. No, correct.
So going back to the grading, and I think we may have talked about this in the preliminary, but is the intention that the majority of these, or at least some of these, are going to have a walkout?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So overall, in relation to grades, there won't be a significant change to what's already there.
Correct. Yeah. The interest was to keep the road high and then to allow them to drop off naturally behind these lots. And we did not. We do have catch basins and some stormwater infrastructure that's shown there, but that would follow the natural terrain as much as possible.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, the concern is the neighboring, lots to the south there. We obviously wouldn't want to increase or have additional discharge than what's already on site going to their, causing any kind of issues there with flooding or anything like that.
Yeah, all downspouts would be directed toward the storm sewer, which would actually be out front, and then directed to the basin at the rear of the site, according to the engineering plans.
Okay.
Yeah, downspouts and preliminary grading away from the home. So obviously the idea of a walkout and any sumps would also be pumping toward the street as well.
Okay. Do you know how many lots are walkouts or would be identified as walkouts?
I don't think, because we haven't identified building plans, but I think there's a potential for 6 of them based on our preliminary look.
Okay.
There's 6. It's lots 2 through 7 are the ones that were identified, and at least what I looked at were as potential walkout.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Yeah, and that would actually reduce, as my understanding, I'm not an engineer, our engineer talked to me about that. What I understand is it would reduce the speed of flow of water, because right now there's more terrain there. If there's a walkout, it's actually going to be kind of leveling off the backyard. So again, kind of slow down the water that would be remaining that would be headed that way. But according to engineering standards, I understand we can't increase the flow of water, and definitely not the speed of it.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Trying to think where to start. I do not have any problem with the use. This is currently farm residential. I know it can't stay farm residential, so single family homes, judging by what's in the area, makes sense. My biggest concern is that you're requesting divergences, and in the past we have said, again, this was a previous commission, in light of development, just no divergences, because there's a lot of concern about cramming too many housing units in too small of a site. So I don't know. It looks like you don't need a divergence along Orange based upon what Robin has stated. I would encourage you to get your sign compliant with our code. Either make it smaller or move it back. I would have the fire department work out what you need at the end with the T. The T does make sense in terms of future planning. But make sure the fire department's okay with it. And I think they prefer roundabouts as opposed to T's. So I would get their verification that they're all right with that. I know you've also requested a divergence to reduce your lot, I want to say depth, by 5 feet. I would encourage you not to try to do that, but try to work out a site plan where there's no divergences. I realize that means you won't have as much space on the east side of the property, but I would, like I said, no divergences would make this easier to be approved. I was curious about lot number 10 as well. It looks like part of the lot is in the easement for the power lines. Is there a reason for that? Basically, they can't fence in their lot if that's the case, because that's a structure that would be within the transmission lines.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
So basically, my understanding, according to this, no building or structure shall be placed by the grantors herein, heirs, successors, whatever, under or within 50 feet measured horizontally of the tower or wire. So it looks like the corner of that lot is within that easement, which means that if they try to put a fence up, they won't be able to fence in that area.
They can put up a fence, they just couldn't put up a barn. They will allow a fence.
They will allow a fence?
Yeah,
Okay,
as long as there's access to.
because my understanding was for easements, you put the fence there at your own risk.
Yeah, well,
It is.
it is at your own risk, but you're allowed to put a fence. You're just not allowed to put like a little pole barn or something like that. But
So if they had to work on those transmission lines and they tore that fence down, they're not responsible.
exactly, it's on the cost of the resident.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
is that, so either I first make sure the resident knows about that before they put a fence up when they purchase that lot, or,
My client's interested in retaining that lot, so I will make sure he's aware of it as he's
Okay.
here. Yeah, yeah.
all
It's
right.
the larger
So I guess what I don't want to hear is that someone purchased that lot, builds a fence, and then has the fence torn down, and then the zoning department or the township hears about it.
Sure.
That is sort of what was that?
Unless it's around for 21 years and maintenance hasn't torn it down, then
Yeah.
utility has to pay.
Okay. Thank you.
You know, the interest was to maybe provide the potential for ease of maintenance. So we just came off the end of the T for that purpose. Thought that was a good fit. So.
Okay, so,
Symmetry.
I mean, yeah, as long as the property owner knows about it, and like I
Sure.
said, the township doesn't care about it, then that's fine. The only other question I had was if you all have contacted the post office and some new single-family residential units, they are requiring a cluster box as opposed to individual mailboxes at each house. If that's the case, usually we require like a parking spot or somewhere where a car can stop without creating a traffic hazard for people to drop off and pick up their mail.
Sure.
But that is something that's required by the post office. So if I'd sort of like that looked into, addressed before you get too far down, in case you have to revise your site plan accordingly.
Sure. That makes sense. We can take a look at that.
Yeah, and I noticed your restrictions have. So yeah, you might have to amend your restrictions a little bit.
Yeah, because we had mailbox standards in there. Yeah, so if they're requiring cluster, we'll deal with that.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised, but I know some of our recent single-family residential neighborhoods, they have requested cluster boxes. I guess it's more efficient for the post office than going door to door. No comment on that. Nonetheless, it creates site plan issues for developers, so please take that into consideration. And yeah, I think that's it. Just please be careful on the divergences.
Can I ask one question of if you don't mind, the 135, I will say part of the nature of the request, I was against it as well up front, but my engineer pointed out that it might allow for some of those boundary tree lines on the fence line to remain, where typically the right-of-way has to be cleared. So my answer about trying to preserve that tree line or provide any supplemental screening might be eliminated if we moved it. So that was why I was kind of generally supportive of a 5-foot into 135 foot, but I didn't know if you had any wiggle room potentially on one divergence there.
So would that tree line then be in the future right-of-way if you moved it by 5 feet?
It would not be. We would have a double strip down through there as indicated on the plan, so it would be a part of that open space at the rear of the lot. It would be owned and maintained by the homeowners association, which they're going to be maintaining the right-of-way anyhow, assumingly mowing the edge of the road. So it would be mowed and maintained as a part of the right-of-way there. But I had assumed homeowners might mow up to the their side of the street, and then the other side might be maintained by the homeowners association, just because it's contiguous to both front and back, that they could mow and maintain down that other side.
That is, like I said, just my concern, because there have been recently for developments off of Old State where former farm residential has been converted to single family. There was a lot of concern about putting too many units into too small of a site and the traffic and congestion that would create.
Sure.
Which is why I ask again, make sure that the fire department is okay with this plan. Generally 10, I think they can handle. When you reach a certain point, they like to have 2 access points. But I believe you are under that number. But just make sure they're satisfied from a life safety aspect.
Okay.
That's it for me. I've said enough.
So based on Christine's comments, a couple things. So the sign, do you see that being an issue, moving that sign into 15 foot?
No, I think the interest would be making 100% compliant. We just offered what we were thinking from a demonstration standpoint. So if there's a condition to relocate it or resize it, we would definitely be open to that.
Okay.
Not to speak, but I would assume we haven't talked about it, but
Yeah.
I would assume I came up with it with the idea this is something we could do. So
Okay. And then I see what Christine's saying. I mean, if we were to make these lots, if we were to give the 5 foot back, and maybe we push that access road up a little bit, say we lose a few trees, or I doubt you guys are doing a tree survey, but if there was a way to determine those trees, and maybe this is something to think about, if we are to take some out by doing that and making those lot depth compliant, would it be possible, or at least take into consideration, to maybe replant or plant a few of those trees back, or just to continue that screening as it is today? I know it's not 100% screened. I know that there's some spots where you can see through, and it's not. But maybe a couple trees were planted back. If you were able to go to the engineers and talk to them, and we make that shift, and maybe we lose a few trees, or we think that there's going to be a few, maybe have a landscape adding a couple of those back, I think would be a good compromise.
Or I don't know what kind of trees there are currently. They're probably mixed. But you might want more evergreens if you're really wanting to screen for the fall and winter months.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I'm not. It doesn't have to be. I guess my point is, it doesn't have to be like a huge improvement or like a continuous, screen landscape, buffer zone. It could just maybe being adding a couple back if you start to make that shift, and then say, okay, well, it looks like we're going to take out at least these trees we know of. We could possibly plant a few back here just to kind of maintain that.
Sure.
But just something to consider. But I think, to Christine's point, it sounds like it would be more important to the board to maybe try to get that depth in there for the lots. And yeah, I agree. I mean, if we didn't have any divergences, that would be really easy for
Excellent
everybody.
and really easy for everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that. I know there's water line and other improvements that were demonstrated on that side, including stormwater, that we would obviously have to get, and we could look at relocating those to the other side of the road if that's possible, to maybe push the roadway further north. I think that would definitely allow that opportunity.
Is there any other comments from the board? Les? Nothing? Okay, at this time, we're going to open up for discussion to the public. If you wish to speak tonight, please come up and state your name and address. And for the sake of time, please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes and avoid any redundancy. If someone's already made the point, we will certainly take it into consideration. And for tonight's discussion, there's no reason to try to reiterate what someone's already said.
Good evening, Brian Hoyt, 2249 Holma Court, Lewis Center. Also a member of the Wilshire HOA, here representing. I have a comment and I have a question, if it's permitted. One is to support what you said about divergence. Having worked for a couple cities, zonings are only as strong as the lack of divergence that you have. Otherwise, it is a slippery slope, no pun intended. My question is on the dry basin that would be put in the right of way, since that abuts basically up to the Wilshire neighborhood, who would maintain that area? As of right now, it's maintained kind of as an untouched preserve. Being a dry basin, it will acquire a lot of water here and there. So I wanted to know who would be responsible for maintaining that. And are there any contingency plans if for some reason that's not sufficient to keep the drainage at bay?
Okay. We'll obviously we'll let you guys address this at the end. I will say that there will be engineering review with Delaware County. They'll make sure that basin is adequate and properly sized. So there shouldn't be any. I mean, it's sized off of a 100-year event, so it's unlikely that there would be any major issues with it. But it's a good question. I'm assuming an HOA or something that would maintain that area because it's an open reserve. But we'll let that question get answered when we're done with public comment. Any other comments?
First of all, what are the size of these proposed
Can you give your name and address,
I'm
please?
sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
My name is Betsy Bronger, 2434 Charo Street.
Okay.
What are the size of these homes that are being proposed? Does anybody answer this? Did they answer me back, or how does this work? I've never been here before.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head if it's in here, but
So is it, you're saying, is it 1,500
like the,
square foot or is it 2,100 square foot?
Right.
The average size of the homes. Yeah, you can.
that's fine.
Okay, yeah, so I believe we mirrored the township standards, but I believe within the covenants, there was some reference to square footage.
My count stopped, right? Because I have 4. Mike, stop the timer a minute here.
Yeah.
While he's looking, or I can go on. We can go back to him.
Yeah, if you want to go on.
Okay, great. So I have a question. Do you people walk these lots? Has anybody been back there to even see what this is, like in real life? Or do you just view it on here? I don't know the process, I'm asking.
I mean, I don't know if anybody here personally went out to that site. We're all familiar with it. I'm certainly familiar with it. I don't.
Right, it's right beside the school.
Yeah.
A multi-use path. It's my house the back of my house. I can see it through the pine trees. I don't understand with all the children, tons of bikers, tons of strollers every day have that path, and you want to add more traffic there? It makes absolutely no sense to me. Number one. Number two. Obviously, there's too many homes on that lot to even have a turnaround for a fire department. Makes no sense. That tree line, at best, has half-dead trees. There's no maintaining that tree line when they start doing this. What else do I have? I can't even believe that this is even entertained. I don't understand, as a township, why we have to use every square foot and reorganize it. All of us have built our homes and lived there with this being this cute little old farmhouse. Tear it down, build your dream house right there on that lot. But why do we have to have 10 more? And then on the corner, you've got another 25. And now down Little Bear, there's another how many condos or / apartments / whatever that is. And then 2 doors down from that, you've got that little white farmhouse that now there's 3 acres there that you're going to put how many houses on? When is enough? I mean, seriously, it's disappointing. It's just disappointing to me. And I would very much encourage you to look at that lot. Spend 5 minutes in that driveway and see how many children run through there every day, all day, walking to school. Parents taking their strollers. The kids are up ahead on the bicycles. All these people that live there that have small children as well. It just doesn't make any sense why we have to shove 10 homes on a lot that's supposed to be meant for one home. One home. It's a single family home, farm residential. One. That's all I have.
Thank you.
The owner should know what square footage of his home.
How you guys doing?
Good.
Mike Parker, 2392 East Orange Road, literally the neighbor on the plot line. I didn't know if you guys knew, but you have red-tailed hawks, literally where you guys want to start construction on the property line. They're a protected animal. You guys might want to check that out too. And then, yeah, I have the same concerns as her. Kids play there. There's running groups. I mean, there's constant people. And how long is 10 houses going to take to build? I do constructions, 3 years for everything? Constant noise. I got to give up 3 years of my summers with my boys just to hear that stuff constantly. That's all. It just seems really unnecessary to try to fit 10 pounds of shit in 5 pounds of egg.
Hi, I'm Carrie McJunkin. I live at 2953 Kingman Court. I'm in Wilshire. My question is, when you leave the lot, I know going down Orange Road at the schools, some are right turn only. How will the leaving that neighborhood be? Is it right turn, left turn? Congestion's huge with school time, high school and middle school being right there.
Larry Rulin, 2329 Omaha Place, house right behind the development with the pool there. Just want to get on the record that the tree line in the back of the development in green space B is going to be preserved. Right against the fence. See the pole? Are those trees going to stay?
On the south side of the, or the west side of the development. You're talking about?
Right there.
Oh, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
Okay, just want to get that.
Part of the reserve, yeah. It's not good.
So just a comment. I understand this is preliminary approval, but any plans for a traffic impact study? Any plans for an environmental impact study? Or you just approve things because they meet what your plan says? Do you ever do that? Here.
On larger developments, we do require traffic studies, yes.
So not within so many feet of a school and a roundabout and a safety path? None of that counts?
I mean, the number of lots here, 10 lots, is going to be a significantly low trip count for the amount of traffic this will generate. I don't know. I mean, I can tell you right now, the purpose of a traffic study is exactly for one of the purposes you're mentioning, which is a safety issue, but it's more in relation to if there needs to be required infrastructure as well as, turn lanes, decel lanes, a light, those type of things that are associated with that development. It's not going to say, that there's going to be a problem with bike traffic or, the multipath use and conflicts. It won't identify those things. It'll say that there may be, one car every so many hours or something like that,
I understand.
which is not going to support, that there's a concern with any type of safety issues, if that makes sense. I mean, it's a smaller development. We certainly hear what everybody's saying, the safety concern. I have seen a lot of people out on that path. I would say I don't see this any different than any other path and ingress into a small site like this, where you're going to have a overabundance of traffic generated from this that's going to cause or any significant impact.
You don't see a difference, but you don't know because there will be no study, correct?
As far as the traffic?
Yeah, you don't see a difference, but you don't know because there will be no study.
We can ask if they're wanting to provide one.
That'd be great.
But it's certainly not required.
So wait a minute, back up. You let the developer dictate what studies are going to be done, or who's running the show here?
That's exactly right.
You let the developer dictate what studies they're going to turn in?
No, let me answer. So
okay.
The developers are typically providing these studies because they are costly. It's not something that Orange Township is willing to take on.
Mm-hmm.
In the case where after these studies have been reviewed by professionals, if there's concern with that report, and this has certainly happened in the past, and we can challenge that and have a separate one done by a third party.
So what's the cutoff for who decides when there's a traffic study needed and when there isn't?
I don't know the exact requirements.
You're on the zoning commission and you don't know?
I don't know for every development what the requirements are.
Shouldn't you know that? If I were you, I would know that.
Yeah. I mean,
right? I would know that, sir. You're running the meeting.
Yeah, I mean...
So earlier, this man said he didn't know what square footage he was going to build, right? He wants to build a development, yet he doesn't even know what size they are. What size are the houses? He doesn't know.
Yeah.
I just was waiting until they got done.
So clearly, he's trying to maximize profit. Doesn't have any kind of plan for the fit and finish of the buildings. What are they gonna look like? Nope, he's not showed us a single picture of what a house would look like. How would the neighbors possibly know if they'd be happy with that development or not? We don't know.
Based on square footage? I would
No,
think
no, I'd love to
aesthetic.
see a full rendering. That's what I'd love to see. I care a lot more about a rendering than a square footage. So, and it's interesting. I read in the packet that these lots were the similar size of the other lot. No, they're not. Do the math. They're not. There's not a single lot over there or in Wilshire that's the same size as those 9 lots. Not one. Find me one.
I mean, I just doing a visual, it looks like those ones to the east there look about the same size.
They're not. They're not.
I mean,
But you don't know that either.
well,
'cause you
yeah,
haven't
no,
done
but
the
I don't
math.
have every acreage memorized in Orange
Okay,
Township either.
thank you.
And to go back to answer your question on the traffic studies, the reason why we don't have the board doesn't have these things memorized is they're generated by the county engineer, not us. So the county engineer is the one that's going to bring this up if they feel that one's required.
And if I may comment, that is the same with the environmental protection issues, water runoff issues. Anytime there's an environmental issue, that is not for the township or the zoning commission. We have addressed that before, but it's not technically within our jurisdiction. That is a county and state issue when it comes to environmental, endangered species, water runoff.
So the locals have no control over that. You said that locals have no control.
Not zoning. We are the zoning commission. Our job is to follow the zoning code and what is written in the zoning code. We're not, that is our jurisdiction. Our jurisdiction is not stuff that is under the purview of the county traffic engineer. In this case, it would be the county. Some cases, depending upon the jurisdiction of the road, it would be the state. We also don't have jurisdiction over technically water runoff. It is a concern, but, and same with wetlands and same with endangered species. But
So
it's
if
not in the
3 years from now
zoning
my
code.
backyard floods because this development comes in here, you're gonna tell me, I'm sorry, I had no jurisdiction over it.
It
That's
is,
not gonna be a very good.
it is the county engineer that has to approve those. We are a township. We do not have an engineer on staff.
Hopefully you all have some common sense. Thank you.
Do you want to answer the square footage question now, or are we waiting still to the end?
Yeah, it actually dictates.
So we're going to address, so we've listed out in the development standards, there's no minimum square footage called, but we'd be open to a 2,200 square foot minimum. The covenants that were listed in their example, they were pulled, we would replace that obviously.
Maximum.
Well, typically, we're driving the maximum if you, because that's something that is typical in the township. It's the maximum.
No, minimum sizes.
Yeah, usually the maximum is dictated by the building envelope, so the yellow is the maximum setback area, so we have to keep the structure within that area. So it's 12 feet side yard, correct me if I'm wrong, 12 foot side.
Yes, correct.
12 foot side off 75, so we have 63 feet of width in that building envelope, and additional 75 feet off of 135, which would be a lot. So that would be the building envelope that would be.
And there is a height restriction, so you're capped at generally 2 stories, 35 feet, if I remember correctly.
And I would also point out that the minimum square footage in the single family plan residential district is 1,000 square feet.
That's what our text said, but it wasn't for something intending to say, hey, we're going to build stuff.
But for the record, he said 2,200 square feet.
My name's Laurie Sanders, 2371 Cross Creek Court. So my house actually backs up directly against these lots. And so some of the things that were being discussed, which you said the zoning board doesn't take into account, I do want to have on the record as far as the runoff. So the fence line directly for this property comes across my property. So I am concerned, one, if the trees are going to be removed in the back. I know we were talking about the divergence for the trees in the front, but the trees in the back, what are the plans for that as well?
The drive was located on the north side primarily, so backyard as they are.
Okay.
The stormwater stops at lot 9. So there's a catch basin on the back of 9 only, as well also out on the lot, or the property, that there is a pool there, so protection is attached, but everything else, is going.
Okay, because that is a concern currently on our lot. There's a trench, so that those trees help to preserve the water runoff coming on directly to our property. And then obviously the trees are mature, and so our neighborhood is called the Woods of Cross Creek. So that is an allure and appeal of our neighborhood, is the fact that there are so many mature and beautiful trees. Our homes also are very similar in style and build. If, as the woman had said before, if you come to the property, all of the homes look very similar. It's a standard of our HOA. So having these potentially 22 square foot, 10 crammed homes directly behind all of our homes that have these mature trees and all of this standardized look is, very concerning, and something from an aesthetic that really is something I could hope we could avoid, in addition to some of the environmental concerns such as runoff and things like that. I think that was all I had. Thanks.
Thank you.
Craig Ketcher, and I live at 2324 Omaha Place. Just a couple questions. The road width is, how wide is the road going to be?
I don't know, other than the engineer's office will dictate that, but
That's
it's
good.
my understanding that it would probably be.
Okay, I was just wondering, you talked about maybe future tie-in, so it'd have to be at least 24. Okay, so there's enough right away for that. Okay, and I may have missed this. Did you also say that there is going to be an environmental impact study, or I may have missed it, or
That is something that the county or state.
okay,
will
they
look
dictate
into.
that, so they're
They
not.
dictate that.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. Tabitha Greco, 2363 Cross Court. I'm also, will be behind you. I'm on the cul-de-sac currently. And we actually have put probably $5,000 in our home already because of the water and the drainage. I also know that that power line company is a stickler. They've taken us take down tree after tree after tree because they get too big or too tall. So I really would like to press them a little bit harder on the approval of using that easement. I would also ask you to I'd invite you even to my home. So in the fall and the winter, when all of the trees lose their leaves, you have a direct line of sight, even from my house to the track. At all times, you can hear the baseball games, the football games. It is a loud area. At any given time, there are air horns, there are children, there are the whistles. 6 months out of the year, especially when kids are in school, there is no barrier between me and the school. So I would also maybe just understand that when you want people to buy these homes, they are right next to a school, and it is a loud area. So adding 10 more areas while you mentioned that you wouldn't imagine much more traffic. I don't think we're so worried about the cars as we are the noises of the school, the noises of these homes, the noises that we just generally incur. And I would encourage you to maybe just look at fewer homes, saving as many trees as you can. Again, the woods across creek. I would also maybe encourage you to annex into our current HOA and maybe create one actually cohesive area within our homes. Just some solutions or ideas, but I am not against changing the zone, but I am actively against the 10 homes where there is no barrier currently between myself and the school. So adding an additional layer is going to be extremely, fill in the word, annoying, not annoying. I mean, it is a detriment, right? Like to walk out of my house and hear the whistles and hear the referees, it's loud. So I can only imagine adding 10 more to that. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Hi, my name is Jason Mack. I live at 7831 Kingman Place, Louis Center, Ohio, 43035. Thank you for this plan. I personally don't like it, but I know that, like you had said, it's progress. We got to move forward. My concern is when we asked you about square footage, and you were saying, "Oh, we're going to commit to 2,200." What kind of value of property value do you think you're going to be putting into these properties? Are these going to be $200,000 homes? Are they going to be 150? Are they going to be 400? Are they going to be 500? You know, because I'll tell you, from the other side point of view, is I live in Wilshire, and those property values are upwards north of $500,000 plus, and it scares me that I see these low houses being put in that have the same diagram as our Wilshire houses, because it makes your graph look really good. But when we ask you about the square footage, and what kind of, like this gentleman asked for a rendering, are you going to be focusing towards a low to moderate income home? Are you going to be looking for a higher end home as to what that is? And then the other concern I had was on that basin or whatever. Just coming from the Wilshire thing, kids are kids. When they go past things, they throw their trash in there. They throw this in there. They throw this in there. Who's going to take care of all that trash and the responsible of the maintenance of that, other than worrying about the water coming in, which is a major concern because it affects the runoff going into our neighborhood. We just want to make sure that we're, one, maintaining the integrity of our neighborhoods and making sure that this is not just really pulled down our neighborhoods, because eventually those are going to be comps in our neighborhood, or somebody's going to pull that in, and then it's going to add extra work and favors, to say, hey, why are we using these comparables to here if we're only comparing a 1,200 to 2,200 square foot when the Wilshire houses are 3,200 square feet plus. So I just want to make sure that we're putting the right houses in there to make sure that we're upholding our neighborhood values. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Walk through the process and the next set of meetings you guys do, how it works, but when I saw I saw it on the website, and I can see it. And when does it go to the trustees, all that?
Yep. So the way that this process works, just a high level, is we'll have an initial meeting like we are tonight. By the end of this, we will set a day and time that works for the applicant in Orange Township to meet again based on tonight's discussion and go over those changes, and however many more meetings that will take. It could be voted on that night, or it could go on for another several meetings depending on how the responses are. But once it's approved at the zoning level, at this level here, it will then go on to the trustees. I believe there's a month period or so of, is there a review or something but before they will get scheduled. I don't know the exact dates, but they'll go to the trustees, and then that will get announced, so everybody will be aware of when that goes to the trustees. That's a final vote. So just so everybody knows, in here, the zoning provides a recommendation of approval or denial, and the trustees have the ultimate ability to either override that or agree with it.
Is there public comment during the trustees meeting, or is it
Yes. Yes.
And I can mention, if anyone has any questions about the process, please feel free to reach out to our zoning office.
Are we able to receive a letter as well then?
Yes, but I think if you're within so many feet, right? Correct. Not everybody.
So I'll know when this comes up again.
Correct. It's the same. It's the same list. Yes. Yep.
Okay. Any other public comment before we have the applicant respond?
Hi, my name's Amanda Kutcher. I live at 2343 Cross Creek Court. I don't know if this is something that you guys manage or not. If this is approved and the building does begin, who actually oversees that? The noise, the dirt, the time that the work starts, the time that the work ends, the cleanup. Who actually oversees to make sure that that gets done? I'm pretty sure some of our neighbors who live behind and directly across the street, the mud and all the things that come with construction tend to be, I don't want to say overlooked a lot of the times, but we end up having to deal with it more because we live there. So who actually would oversee that and manage that?
Yeah, so there's two things you mentioned. One, the first being any kind of noise violations. That's certainly something that could be reported to Orange Township if that would occur outside of the set times for those for construction and things to be allowed to commence, I guess. So, you know, there's the county would be physically doing inspections on these homes. They will be coming out to inspect them during construction in certain phases as they move along. The EPA is who would dictate any type of you're saying the mud or, you know, so silt fencing, these type of safety devices would have to be put into place to prevent that. If there's what anybody sees where there is a violation, or maybe a silt fence is down and there's runoff and there's mud coming into someone else's property, that can be reported to the EPA. That's not something that we necessarily have any jurisdiction to do anything with that. You know, construction is what it is. It's temporary, thankfully. You know, it's not something that's going to go on forever. But if any of those violations occur, you can always certainly reach out to the township and let them know. And if it's not something we handle, we would direct you to the proper person or agency to address those issues. Robin, is that anything that you would add to that, or?
The only thing I would add is that Orange Township does have a noise resolution. It is enforced by the Delaware County Sheriff's Office.
Yep.
So if you're complaining about that, please call the sheriff.
Robin, would you happen to know if you can build on a lot where there's a nesting pair of endangered dogs?
That would be a question for the EPA. We do not have any regulation on that.
Any further public comment? Okay. Joe, did you want to come back up and address some of the comments?
Yeah, I apologize. I was quiet. At the end of the day, I get used to collect comments, and a lot of them are the same, and I understand some of those for more comments, so I apologize, but that's just the nature of what we do. So I just wanted to run through real briefly just some notes. I understand we have some changes to make to the plan, and that's part of it. I don't want to sound like we're trying to ramrod something through it with you. There's definitely a process to play out here, and this is step one in the zoning world, so we're here. As far as the basin, it would be written into the HOA covenants as the example that was provided. The HOA would be providing day-to-day maintenance, but it's my anticipation that Delaware County's ditch maintenance program will also be a secondary to this basin. Typically anything in a higher dense area like this, where there's small lots around it, they're going to require us to be put into the county's maintenance program. Just for the benefit of those here and maybe board members, if you're not aware, that's an additional assessment that's paid on your property taxes to help maintain long-term property or the infrastructure for stormwater. So that would likely be incorporated at the engineering phase for the project. The idea of day-to-day maintenance, so like trash collecting and basins and stuff, would fall on the HOA or their maintenance, whoever they're paying to maintain that open space. Until it's turned over, it's the responsibility of the developer. The size of homes, it did state in there, and why I was making sure I looked for it, because I knew it was in there somewhere, but I'd say we can increase that. I realized we went through a couple hearings with the trustees recently, and we prescribed minimum square footage, and we'd be happy to do that. In talking with Aaron, I think the 2,200 square foot would be a minimum standard. The expectation is to look at lot values that are probably somewhere in north of $500,000-600,000. It costs $200 a square foot to build in today's market. So at 2,200 square feet, you're building a $500,000-600,000 house on these lots, and that the lots values added onto that as well. So I could envision these lots bringing $750,000 easily just with the minimum standards. I know the public didn't necessarily have the benefit of seeing the architectural standards that were prescribed in the development text as well. We did call out natural materials, no vinyl siding. Called out some of those as well. So there are standards that are written into the development text that we would hold to as well. We're not home builders, not MI. At the end of the day, these will be custom built homes. So the thought process is, as these are built out, they'll have to meet all those minimum standards. So that's why we're not standing in front of you with renderings for all 10 lots. It will not be cookie cutter. It will be entirely custom built. As far as the access, talk about that in environmental. The engineering process does prescribe that we have to do trip. It starts with a trip generation study. So a typical single family house generates somewhere, I think the standard now says 9 to 10. I know COVID kind of changed it, but ultimately the engineering manual says some 9 to 10 trips per day per house. So assumingly five trips come and go. So that standard dictates whether or not a turn lane is required or additional improvements. It also dictates some of the curve radius and things that we would have to look at the entrance. So that is a prerequisite for the preliminary subdivision plan that we would present to Delaware County. At that time, it may trip further traffic studies. It may trip additional details that have to be provided, but we don't really know that until we get through that process. So just chicken and egg, we're here first because we have to figure out how many lots, and then we pay for that study. As far as environmental study, that starts with what's called a preliminary waters of the U.S. study. That's required by a certified professional. We typically use Smart Services out of Newark. They come up, they visit the site, they look at any of the EPA and those standards that are going to be put in place. So even I would imagine the red-tailed hawk would be a part of their study when they're on site. So we would talk to them about any findings, and then we work around any findings that they have or make appropriate decisions based on those findings. So again, that's presented at the preliminary plan phase for the subdivision process. The idea of full access, I think this would be a full access point. Safety-wise, you'd have to have full egress as far as turning in, unless there was ever a median on East Orange Road. I think that would also be full access that way. That's the way the traffic impact study or the traffic trip generation study would be formed. So we would be up against that. I put these building pads on here as a typical and no way meant for that to look cookie cutter. It is a house from one of the adjoining lots, I think, to the east. And I just put that in there to demonstrate minimum square footage being met. And I can tell you exactly how big it is, but based on those lot dimensions, we could easily hit the 22 minimum and likely have homes that are larger than that, but they would meet the building separation at 12 feet according to the Township zoning code. As far as additional comments, tree preservation, there can be standards put in place in the open space, and then also we've talked about the potential on that western boundary because we purposely moved all the infrastructure away to save those trees. So if that's something we need to look at to try to preserve those, I think it's the developer's interest as well, Aaron's interest to make sure that the lots hold value. So to see one owner go in and clear cut their lot would be detrimental to the neighboring lots there. But we understand that there might be some impact as construction occurs to get the maximum. And not all those trees are in the best of shape. So we could work with you to find out what that looks like. Other than that, the idea of joining the adjoining HOA, I've never been a part of. We are looking at that for one lot split that we're doing. I think the uniqueness and I think what we've looked at there was for architectural standard. That was typically because there's a building pattern that's set out for those associations. So I'm not sure that would be the easiest process based on my research, but it's something we could, I think the word was endeavor, to try to do. So we can work through that process if that's something that's an objective. But the goal is here to set up a separate HOA, and we, at least based on 10 lots, it looks sustainable. So the fees that they're paying would pay for this open space that's being proposed in this development. So I'd probably respectfully request, unless you can make a conditional approval, we probably request the ability to submit clean plans to you, unless the staff would prefer us to make those as a point of contention for conditional approval. But we'd like to come back to you with those items addressed in the development text, and especially elimination of divergences, if that's your preference.
Yeah, no, that, how long do you think, based on the comments tonight, it would take to maybe address some of those?
I mean, to get a plan set back to you, maybe a week or two, but I question whether, how far in advance of your meeting you need to have those as well.
But looking at the schedule, Robin, do you have a date in mind that's on there?
My suggestion would be the regular meeting date of July 26th at 6:30. Currently, we do not have anything on that agenda.
Would be your submission deadline for that?
At least a week before.
Okay.
So does July 26th at 6:30 work for everybody? Les? Yeah. So that's shaking your head. Good.
Checking, but I believe so.
Perfect. Then we'll do that. Anything else to add, or?
No, we'll
Okay.
see you in a month, and
Yeah.
look forward to getting all the comments addressed. If anybody has additional, I have, I think, a couple parts, but I know Robin's got our contact information posted on the application on the website. Happy to reach out if you want to share anything else. I try to respond within a day or two, so I'll try to get everything addressed. But I definitely took good notes tonight, so we'll get as much as we can incorporated and come back and present that to you here next month.
Sounds good. Thank you. Can I get a motion to continue the hearing, zoning application 22-07, plan for land, 2460 East Orange Road, Lewis Center, Ohio, to July 26th at 6:30 p.m.?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Pahowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Bellis?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Beer? Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, now on to the second application for tonight's meeting. We have rezoning application ZON-22-08, ECH Pathways, located at 123 Hyatt Road, Delaware, Ohio, 43015. Robin, do you wish to go through the staff report on this, please?
Sure. So this is an application to amend the currently effective zoning development plan for property located at 123 Hyatt's Road and also at 5700 Columbus Pike. The applicant is requesting to amend the currently effective zonings to increase permitted uses and add additional parking for those proposed uses. The site is located at the northwest border of Orange Township, abutting Hyatt's Road and US 23. The applicant is specifically requesting to amend current zoning development plans from two previous cases. The proposed development will comply with all previously approved standards with no divergences required or requested. The property is surrounded to the north and south by a planned commercial district and also farm residential. To the east is mixed use under the Route 23 Overlay Corridor District and farm residential to the west in Liberty Township as well. On the second page, you can see the aerial photograph as well as the illustrative plan. In terms of the applicant's request, so additional permitted uses have been requested. One would be special events held both indoors and outdoors with or without a tent, including but not limited to seminars, conferences, recitals, religious services, ceremonies, concerts, weddings, corporate events, memorial services, celebration of life services, bridal showers, baby showers, birthday celebrations, Christmas parties, cocktail receptions, retreats, training and educational events, lectures, and ad meetings. This would an additional permitted use has been requested, which is occasional overnight accommodations for attendees of special events for up to 5 or 6 people. For example, a bride and groom or family members and speakers for lectures. Development standards: the only buildings permitted on the site shall be the existing house and greenhouse, which will not exceed 35 feet. The proposal includes tenant events that will comply with permit requirements for specific tents to be used. The proposed amendment complies with architectural criteria, open space criteria, lighting criteria. In terms of parking, the applicant shall provide appropriate ingress/egress for parking as required by the Delaware County Engineer's Office. Required parking spaces shall be provided as stated in Article 21 of the Orange Township Zoning Resolution. No additional divergences were requested outside of those previously approved. In terms of staff comments, we do note that no letters from the Delaware County Engineer's Office have been received as part of this application regarding access to the lot on US 23 where the proposed parking area would be. I would also note that as part of this application, there were letters that were submitted. I hope it was clear to the Commission that most of those approval letters were from the 2014 rezoning and are not current. The Orange Township Operations Department had one comment, which was to request an easement for a multi-use path along any frontage on Columbus Pike, aka US 23. I have nothing further.
Thanks, Robin. Does the applicant wish to come up and address, or at least give an overview of the project and maybe address the staff comment.
My name is Nancy Krieger, and I'm with Manos Martin and Pergram, and I have Deb Joseph here to answer any questions. Not to inundate you with a bunch of paper, but some of you may have seen the fact sheet that we prior to with our informal. And just to save time, I made notes on the staff report. Thank you. I'll go through the staff report first and address some of the issues that came up. What you have in your hands is a copy of the original fact sheet with an overview, some pictures of the site, and some other parts that I will get to that I added in there. Going through the staff report, the Shale Hollow Preservation Park is a little distance away. There's some commercial in between, so it's a bit of a distance. On page 2, this project was an amendment of the 2014 zoning, and a lot of changes have happened since then. The changes that were addressed in that original amendment have been done. So when we get to the pedestrian pathway to the parking over on Hyatt or on Columbus Pike, that has been constructed. That exists. When you go into page 3, in the development standards, the greenhouse is built and it's not, it's under 35 feet. So that's been done. In the open space requirements in the 2014 zoning do comply. So everything that was asked for and requested has been done. For the parking, that's done. The entry was changed by the Delaware County Engineering's office with the Hyatt's Road realignment. The 123 Hyatts gave up quite a bit to comply and work with the Delaware County Engineering's office for that Hyatt's Road realignment. When you get to the staff comments, when it says the proposed parking area, it is already a parking area. There was a Safeway there. It was approved. It has all the base. There really wasn't any need for additional letters for parking because it's been approved as a parking in prior zonings. It has a common access with other parcels, and there's also a legal access that was barricaded off of 23. So you actually access it through a common easement area back to the parking. So that all exists already. When you get to the request for the multi-use path along the frontage road of Columbus Pike, in your package, there's a picture of the parking lot itself, which is just a GIS map. You'll see that the parking area that's been designated has no frontage on Columbus Pike. That frontage lot is for sale, and we would propose that be addressed in a future rezoning whenever that developer comes forward. But this property has no frontage on Columbus Pike. Also in there is a picture of the front entry of the 123 Hyatts. It has the 2 stone pillars, and attached to that is a flag representation. What we did not include in this, proposed amendment, the uses was some signage. As you drive by with the Hyatt's Road realignment, you can pass the entryway to 123 pretty quickly. You see the stone pillars. It had to be set back a bit with the realignment. So one of the things we'd like to address and discuss is the possibility of putting a flag-like banner on those pillars that says Dempsey Event Center. So it'll be tastefully done. We don't have a rendering of that, but that would address some of the signage. And on Columbus Pike, we would work with you to address the signage there and how that would be presented. So we did not put a lot of the signage issues in there. What else did I include in that package? We've gone through that. And then the parking. So I addressed the items that are in the package. and the issues that came up in the staff report. So any questions? The 2014 zoning, those things have been done. And so our amendment is just for uses. They currently are allowed office. And they'd like, and so they have some events with the office, like business meetings, things like that. This is just being able to hold indoor and outdoor events for larger groups. And the parking would be in compliance with the parking on.
So is this lot being split then? Because I see where you highlighted the section for the parking here, but the entire parcel itself does have frontage on 23. Are you saying that?
It would be, it's being split out, whether that parcel becomes part of the property or is associated with it through an easement or a perpetual easement. That's yet to be decided. But that part of the parking is going to be split from the balance of the property because the frontage on US 23 will be sold.
Okay, so it hasn't been approved yet, the lot split.
Not the lot split, but the parking, it's common owner, so.
Yeah.
And this, you're saying that this was already approved as parking, or for that that's what this purpose was, that this served.
It was a speedway, gas station and parking and.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there was zoning, correctly, if I remember correctly, to allow like community markets or something, and that's also when they put the planters that are now half dead on 23.
And that was to block the legal access that they had because they didn't want a lot of cars coming in and out, so they used the common access just south of that.
Yeah, so I'm a little confused as to, I guess, which site you don't seem to clarify is Hyatt's Road versus which site is 23, which parking is Hyatt's Road and which parking is 23 access? Because it looks like you have parking on your site on Hyatt's Road, and that's the one you said had been improved.
It has parking there.
And then
but
there's like additional backup parking on 23?
in order to have the events, for the number of people that would come to the events, to be in compliance with the parking, we need an additional roughly 90 spaces of parking.
Okay.
That doesn't exist on the Hyatt's Road property.
Yeah, I understand. So you're going to have.
So the pedestrian pathway that crosses from the Hyatt's Road property to the parking, that exists. You can walk over that woodway, that bridge, and walkway bridge.
And you're saying over that parking lot, once that lot split is approved, you will have a ingress egress to, or you won't be landlocked.
It's not landlocked, and it would be. It's a common ownership, so it touches property that does have road frontage on Hyatt, so it isn't technically landlocked.
Yeah.
But you also you currently have an easement that comes through that south access point.
But do you foresee ingress egress to 23 from that parking lot and later if you sell off that front lot?
You already have that because when that front access point that's been barricaded was closed off, you have the access along that south access point, which goes back to the Preservation Parks property.
Okay.
So that common easement currently exists because that was also under this current ownership. So the easement already exists.
Okay.
So that is what you're using to access.
That's what we'll be using to access.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
It already exists.
23 property.
It's not coming off of this 23 property. There's another strip that runs just south. You can see.
Wait, I'm confused because how do you access the 23?
Right down here, just south of the black line.
There's a shared easement.
And that
You're still coming off of 23.
You are coming off of 23.
Going down that shared easement, shared drive,
And then
into your property. So you're still coming on and off of 23.
That is correct.
Okay. So the question is, that was raised the first time when we had this as a community park or market or something like that, was the county engineer required those planters, bollards, or whatever that was an accommodation for them. What does the county engineer have to say now? Has this been presented to them at all?
The property already has the easement access.
Yes, but you're all of a sudden going from something that is like a temporary event to 90 parking spaces for a wedding or a graduation party or something like that. You are going much, right now it's like a vacant lot. You're adding 90 parking spots. That will be used for events. So that's why I'm asking, has anything been shown to the county engineer in terms of access off of 23?
We have spoken with the county engineer, but that's already been approved as a originally commercial. So we're not changing what currently exists on that. It's already, it was a gas station. It already has been approved for a lot of traffic.
For the traffic and the parking and all of
Yeah,
that.
and then the reason is, well, all right, I'm not gonna argue the.
No, I really want
But,
to understand. Because
Okay,
it's already
the
has
county
been approved.
engineer didn't want access off of 23.
Which is why they moved it
The county engineer
south.
is now trying to limit access, my understanding is on and off of 23, with the number of curb cuts and things of that nature. You're taking, when this was a speedway, was long before a lot of the development occurred in Orange Township. Agreed? Now it's basically a vacant lot that for a while had farmers markets and things like that on the weekends, and it was only over the summer. Now you're turning it into potentially 90 cars going in and out of that small easement road. And the county engineer has nothing to say about that?
Well,
I find that hard to, I would want something in writing from the county engineer to make sure that they're okay. I have no problems with you putting a parking lot down there or doing a lot split. I just want to know what the county engineer has to say about the traffic management.
We can certainly get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
But the zoning on that hasn't changed. We're not changing the zoning on that lot.
Mhm.
We're including the parking for ECH. So the zoning has not changed, and the access and the traffic and the parking have all been approved in the past. But if you want the letter, we can certainly work with the county engineer.
Because that's my point, is because I doubt there was ever 90 parking spots at the speedway on that site.
Although the traffic count would have been significant.
Correct. But would it have been significant probably 20 years ago when there was actually something on that site, not on today's traffic count on 23.
Right.
Let's be honest. Let's be honest.
I want to work with you all. I'm just saying that, that everything that's there exists and has been approved. So we're not asking for any changes in that. But if you need the letter, we will certainly work with you to get the letter.
So would it be possible to get, in addition to the letter, maybe a general layout, or if you are, I'm assuming, adding parking, lighting, or anything like that, that if there's a way to show, at least some information on what's being proposed. I know you're not just going to repave over that same footprint there. If there was a way to just kind of show us what the proposed parking layout would be, and then if you're adding any, lighting or anything that would be in addition to that, and maybe those type of lights, assuming that you're adding them. If you're not, then that's okay, but maybe that's the answer, that you're not having any parking lighting because this is for events that are going to occur, during the day, whatever it is, that we just at least want to see that, make sure that the lighting itself would meet our requirements. And then, if there's lights close to the edge of the property, we may need to make sure that we don't have any spillover as far as maybe possibly doing a photometric plan or something that shows those light values on the site. And just to give us a little bit more of information. We understand what you're saying, that you're wanting to create a parking lot because you're, based on now the uses you're using the house for, you need more parking spaces for specific, based on the occupancy and everything that's going on in those events. So we just would probably need to see a layout of that. That is okay. That's.
Yeah, a layout of the parking lot, and then if it's going to be light, the height of the poles to make sure they meet township standards, and photometrics for light spillage onto neighboring properties.
And I also recommend just if you could show that ingress, egress, even though it's on the adjacent landowner, just show us how it's coming in, and then you talked about the signage, just some kind of rendering of the signage you're going to have on the pillar. That would help.
And the lighting, because I think our township has specific requirements regarding lighting of signs.
And all of that was done in the 2014 zoning and that earlier one for Safeway, but we will put something together.
So you're saying you're not changing any of the lighting that's current? I don't recall if there's lighting there now.
There
I
is
thought
some
it was all-
lighting.
There is
some lighting.
And so you would be adding.
It has been a commercial, zone commercial.
No,
for
and
a
that's
long
fine. So if that, then maybe that's the answer is you're not changing any of the lights, you're not adding any lights, you're keeping what's currently there. You are going to repave, maybe at least showing us what that may look like.
Right, showing the,
The
we'd have to
general
repave and paint for parking spaces.
Yeah.
But if you aren't adding anything, because it sounded like you were
Yeah.
it sounded like you were adding signage and additional lighting for that signage off of Hyatt's Road. And then it sounded like you were adding either lights or signage for the lot off of 23. So if you're not adding anything that's not already there,
Yeah, then you can disregard, maybe that's the answer.
yeah,
You
but
can
if
just
you
state that there's no
are
change.
adding, then you need to include it.
Okay. The Hyatt's Road has the pillars and lights on it now, so it'd be just a flag and flagpole, but we don't have a rendering of that.
Well, I mean, if you're saying it's something existing, then what is the change you're making? You're just adding a flag to
Just adding a flag to the pole. Isn't that right, Jeb?
You're currently on
Yeah. Yep.
there are lights. Lights are.
So there's no yeah.
The only signage that's currently there is a large rock that's raised as 1, 2, 3, 5. Because now the driveway has gotten moved back to the road, very difficult for someone coming either way to be able to identify where that property is. And cars slow down and the cars move fast along that road. So our thought was that we could just have a tasteful flag that says Dempsey Event Center off of each of those pillars hanging out. People would be able to see it as they're hanging down.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So you're just going to put a flag.
Just to put a flag
So,
up.
I'm sorry, I thought you were
Yeah,
putting,
I
like,
thought you were putting a sign.
putting up lighting.
No,
for the flag
just a
pole.
flag.
Off the pillars.
Just off the pillars.
No,
Just to draw attention so when people drive by quickly.
no, that makes sense.
And those are staying up all the time, or just during events you'd put those out?
We would have them there all the time.
Okay.
Because we anticipate people will want to come. Things of that nature when there aren't events going on. Easy for them to find.
So, Robin, would we need to have a review or anything on that?
Yeah, so
Because that would be a permanent sign.
yeah, a couple things there. I would have to compare it against our current sign code, which I do not have memorized. I don't believe we typically allow for flag signs, and so that is something that we'd want to see in the development text, and then specifically called out as a divergence if it's not meeting the current sign code. So I would encourage you to consider entering that into the development text and also kind of designing what you want. And I would say probably best to consult with our office before coming back to this commission. The other thing I would mention is I'm not sure what the legal structure of whether you intend to own part of the lot that is currently on 23 or whether it would be an easement. Off-site parking is not something that is really addressed in our parking standards, and that might trigger divergence as well if it is not specifically on the lot where the use is taking place.
So we don't have anything in our for overflow parking.
Correct. Not that it can't be done, but we would need to look into that.
Yeah, because that's how I would present it as overflow parking, because in a sense it is, right? When you have a bigger event, you have a smaller event, you're gonna use just the Hyatt's parking.
Hyatt's lot,
Yeah.
has 22
Yeah.
spaces.
So yeah, I would state it as overflow parking, because that's really what it.
The only access to
Beautiful
that,
facility.
the only access to that parking space is along that, like you said, the easement along the black line there that's been through, is that your access into that?
I'm sorry.
I apologize. The access to that, where you're proposing the parking is just down here where that black line kind of comes in there and then turns in there.
Right,
Okay.
that was all public ownership, so
Okay.
when it was split, easement was kept.
Okay.
And that goes back to the park.
Okay.
It accesses that.
Okay. And so that's going to be the access point for the.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm guessing you already have people parking there because you already do have pathway to there.
It has been used in the past for parking.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was used for that, so.
Yeah.
The only other questions I have is it looks like in the zoning text, you're adding the fact that special events will be there, blah, 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 and occasional overnight accommodations. We've had a problem off of 23 with hotels and things of that nature. So could you please just, Robin, you can help me with the proper language, limit the number of guests and make it that it's specific to events held at that site. That is just so people don't come out of the woodwork complaining that there's a hotel off of 23.
Mm-hmm. No, it is just for that site.
Yeah, so if you could go ahead and, like I said, limit the number of guests to something that you think is reasonable for what you will have for, small events or large events, and limit, how long they're allowed to stay there. So it's not like 2 months, but.
Or hourly.
Or hourly, exactly. That was the issue before as well with the hotel off of
Deb,
23.
do you want to explain how you envision the rooms and being used? It will be limited. There are only so many rooms in the house.
Exactly. So please and that is, like I said, there have been issues in the past off of 23 with quote unquote hotel uses. Hourly rates, please don't go there. And
yeah, I think obviously the big part of that is tying it to what the events that are in there in the language currently those rooms,
guests.
those guests are
and that's the way it's intended.
Yes, yeah. So, and maybe just figuring out how
yeah.
these work.
So just figure out that language so it's clear that this is not like a boarding house or
bed or breakfast.
Yeah. Or something like that. And then the only other comment I had, that since you are sort of doing this, special events indoors and outdoors, and Robin, you can help with the language as well, is it looks like there's some residential properties off of Hyatt's Road. And are there going to be like limitations on like how late the wedding music can go on for, things of that nature? If you could sort of spell that out so we don't get phone calls that the wedding got rowdy or the graduation party got rowdy. And
we've the neighboring property owners all under common ownership.
Okay.
So there isn't an issue there, and there's one resident who we've spoken to, and she's full in and approves the events and says she loves hearing people happy.
Okay, so and it looks like they're relatively large lots there, but again, if you could just put in some language of what your plans are. I assume you're not going to have like loud music till 3 o'clock in the morning, but whatever you.
No, what the intention is that
Okay, then just put that in the text, put a little buffer just to be on the safe side. But that's just to ensure, like I said, that there's not loud music until, 2, 3 in the morning, where people are calling the county sheriff or something.
Or that you just will be compliant with the noise ordinance in Orange Township.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
guess
you
it's
just put that blurb in, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Or-
complying with the events.
Yeah.
Since it's kind of a unique.
Is that 11?
I believe so, but I'd have to double.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah, so I don't know what it is, and like I said, if you want to go.
So that way you don't restrict yourself to 10 p.m. and you could go till 11, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to.
Or,
do that.
like I said, if you know I have no problems if they go, dare I say, later, but
Yeah.
just, I don't want an open-ended party all night long.
As long as you comply with the local noise ordinance, I think you comply with.
Okay.
And I think those were all my comments.
And just to go back to one of mine, if the intention is just to repave exactly, like if you are reusing the same footprint, and it's literally just doing a mill and fill or just whatever it is.
It's just putting a surface on and lines for parking.
Yeah, so then maybe it could be a very simple just layout of the parking spots or something, but that's really it, just to make sure that they're compliant with, our code and the size and everything. But I think that my comments earlier was it was my fault. I was misinterpreting. I thought you were putting in a brand new parking lot. It's going to be completely different. You're going to take all that out, what's there now, and start over.
No.
And I don't know why I thought that, but I just had that impression.
I thought the same
That's why I
thing
was.
too.
No.
That's why I was saying. That's why I was saying that.
I thought you had to go through some environmental issues because of former.
Oh, no, all that's been done back
Okay.
in 2014, I think.
So yeah, just
My
lay out the parking lot, and then if you do put lights in for safety reasons, make sure they meet the township code and put it in the text. And Robin can tell you the height and the Kelvin levels of the lights and all that other
Yeah,
stuff.
I think you got a very simple application if you just do those little things. It's not a complicated one.
No, it's not.
It seems a lot more complicated than it really is, just because you have these two sites. Yeah, I think it's
But we would be adding a divergence, possibly. Yeah.
For
signage.
The signage.
for the signage, and then
Which
also
I don't
for the
necessarily have an issue.
off-site parking, if you don't do a combined lot, then it would technically be off-site parking, and you would have to have a divergence for that as well, I believe. Robin can help you out.
They're obviously, you can see in the map that they adjoin property lines.
Yeah,
but
but
the lots don't join. So it's as we said, an overflow parking. And honestly, it's this township doesn't have venues, concert venues, or something like that. So we really don't have anything to address that.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a problem. It's
No,
just
it's not going to occur. It's just it's something we don't address normally because it's unusual.
Yeah.
The divergence is unusual situations.
Yeah, it would be needed, just like we have to have like shared parking is a concept that's difficult for the township. I don't know why, but you have to request a divergence for that as well, so
If they were adjoined, if you didn't have that buffer of the trees and stuff, and it was a lot that was all one, then there would be a divergence.
Right, yeah, and yet it could be.
Yeah.
It could be. If you go to split that lot, you could combine the two. In
Yes,
the same
and then you
process.
wouldn't need a divergence.
But honestly, you got a really nice setup there. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
It was me, But
In our intention is that we are going to strongly encourage that do use the venue for to provide the work. So that people.
No, that's yeah. No, it's just some little things. It's nothing big.
That's a right out, isn't it? Off that common access.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd be looping around there for a while to get back up to Hyatt's, back into the main. There's a valet, but it obviously can be done. I'm just saying you have to come out, go right, going back down, hit that light, turn around, go all the way back up, and turn on Hyatt's.
That would be.
But no, I don't see any issues with it. I mean, the banner sign or the flag sign, I think if we just have a little bit more information, that shouldn't be an issue. If we get those divergences listed, I think everything should be good.
Great.
Go.
Yeah, if you just have, I think it'd be easier if they have like a little mock-up of what that flag's gonna look like.
Okay. We did the best we could with that flag in the picture.
It's a brick.
It's right behind it's right behind the entryway.
Yeah, this brick flag sign thing.
That, right, that's an ugly sign, but that's
Yeah.
the gist of it. It's just a flag with saying the Dempsey Event Center.
Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, the flag is ugly, but the concept was.
Yeah, no, that makes sense now. I apologize.
But it would be tastefully done.
Yeah, it would have your address on it, correct?
Is there if this is, 2 by 1 or something, the square footage of, if they were below a certain square footage, I mean, this is no different than almost like putting a American flag or something.
On my house, yeah.
We'd have to look at it. I'm not familiar enough with our sign code, honestly.
So, yeah,
to be
you
able
might need to
say
work with Robin on that. If you're saying that this is kind of what, obviously not the brick, but this is the proposed, and it's in the same size, it may not even require a divergence. I don't know.
My guess is yes. Generally, for permanent signage, especially for commercial purposes, we do require, a permit or something that is called out. But we can verify that.
Okay. All right. So, just getting that stuff done. Do you have a time frame on when you think you can?
I was hoping it would move forward to the next stage with the Board of Trustees. But, with the approval tonight, if we get those things done, conditional approval.
I think we'd still have to see the sign and maybe the parking layout real quick. I mean, just like a general layout. It doesn't have to be like a complete engineering drawing, but
Or at least put in text that the parking will comply with our.
Yeah.
In the development application, there's a section that addressed the requirements for parking and that we would comply with that. The depth, size, the handicap signs, which would be over on the 1, 2, 3 Hyatts, but the width of the parking.
I would still, and this is just me, the rest of the commission can comment, I would still do a layout, because I would still like to see the county engineer be all right with the access of how you're getting in and out of the overflow parking lot at 20.
Okay.
And then he'll have circulation around the parking lot and what have you. I would feel better that way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So do you think you can have this by, I guess it's July 26th?
Yes, we'll get that. I'll work with you, Robin, and go to the county.
Yeah, I think that's a step.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? All right, can I get a motion to continue rezoning application ZON-22-08 ECH Pathways LLC on 123 Hyatts Road, Delaware, Ohio 43015 to July 26th at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
Mr. Powitz?
Yes.
Mr. Bellis?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yeah.
Mr. Beer?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
I think that's it, right? Do we have anything, Robin?
Last meeting, we said we were going to continue the minutes to this meeting. They are not on the agenda, so we will continue those until our next meeting on July 12th, which we'll do organization. We'll present those minutes to you, and then we'll also give you an update on our zoning code resolution rewrite.
Okay. Cool.
So we'll distribute materials to you in advance so that you can hopefully give us some good feedback on that as we move through that process.
Sounds good.